Hi, and welcome to our Tuesday live leadership chats. Today I'm talking with Michelle Farrell, who is co-director of Future Leaders Group, who works with not-for-profits and corporates around strategy and culture and leadership. She's also on the boards for Baptist World Aid, Common Grace and Seed. She was also on the CCI Board for a number of years and is the brains trust behind our name change from Novo Coaching to Christian Coaching Institute about 5 years ago. She's a fellow 3 and a great friend. And today we're going to talk about less ego and more eco. So Michelle, welcome. It's so good to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Kylie.
It's good to have you. So before we jump into today's topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, a bit more about the role that you're currently fulfilling and what you love doing.
Okay. So I am involved in the Future Leader Group, and we have established this organisation as a way to kind of work at some issues that organisations often face around, how do we do strategy well in a way that's genuinely owned and co-created in organizations, and that looks at strategic planning and brand strategy, hence Christian Coaching Institute with the brand work. So I love doing that because I think that's really important for organizations, not-for-profits and others, to actually really know where they're heading and be able to articulate that well internally and externally. And then a lot of work around leadership. And I think over time, having done a lot of those co-created strategies, recognized they rise and fall really around the quality of the leader to implement those. And so really being able to invest in leaders, we particularly hone in on things like emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence, generational intelligence. How do we work with younger leaders? So being able to coach people, do team workshops, and run leadership programs that we run sort of throughout the year as well. So it's quite a mixed bag, but I really enjoy it. It's good fun to be able to see the change, and transformation is sort of a key thing that drives me, and so it's been fun to be able to see that over time. And I'm married with a couple of kids, so that keeps me pretty busy, particularly through lockdown, being able to homeschool and try to work at the same time. But things I love to do, look, probably my biggest hobby at the moment is doing a podcast around being a 3 achiever on the Enneagram. So it's called Achievers Anonymous, and I do that with a friend of mine, Tabitha, and that really energizes me. It sort of culminates in my interest in that space, and a chance to talk through some stuff and keep growing as a person, which for me is fun. I know not everybody loves to do that, but I really enjoy, nutting out, understanding a little bit more around the shadow side and how to keep trying to, work on that over time. So
yeah, probably so good. And that's a really good podcast, by the way. I do love that. I've said that to you before. So today we're talking about less ego and more eco. What do you mean by more eco? What is that?
Well, obviously it's just there for a catchy title, Kylie. You called me out. But there is some depth behind it, I promise. So eco. So this is drawing on Dr. Simon Weston's work around leadership discourses. And so I'm finishing a master's at the moment, and this is some work that I'm just loving wrestling with because it's so meaty and so good. But actually quite simple as well in its thinking. So he talks about 4 leadership discourses, and really the sort of styles really around how people show up as leaders. And so there's the controller style, which likes efficiency and productivity. There's the therapist style, which is very much, if people are happy, then they'll be more productive and work well. And then there's the Messiah leadership discourse, which is very visionary and, can help bring a strong culture. And then there's this idea of eco leader. And so the eco leader, Simon Weston's view is, and I agree, it's really needed for today's current environment, which is very chaotic and tumultuous. And so the eco leader is capable of not dismissing those other 3 discourses. They're actually all very important. The eco leader is capable of knowing when those leadership styles are required. So when is the Messiah leader needed? When do we need to have the controller leadership? For instance, if you as a church are trying to be more environmentally friendly, you actually need the controller leadership style to just shift the way that things happen internally to get better processes in place. But the eco leader is also capable of not just looking at your own organizational system, but actually able to look beyond that at what's happening around you. So what other systems are at play, and capable of being able to work, I guess, on the edge and into that kind of chaos and be able to try new things. And I would say be able to network, create new kind of entities that bubble up as required for the greater vision and calling that you may have as an organization or even as a leader. Does that make sense? There's sort of the difference there. So I think we need more of that, I think, rather than just always looking at our own system, to be able to look beyond.
And so, and you mentioned earlier, kind of, you're thinking that the eco leadership's particularly important for this time. Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, hello, COVID and disruption, digital disruption. I mean, we've all heard pivoting, blah, 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 blah. I use it all the time, by the way. But, you know, we're all sick of it. But it's true, right? So we're all asking the questions, you know, how many, my parents in the church space and have been in the theological college space in the past. I've, you know, and I work with not-for-profits and others, you know, who we're asking the question, like, what does it mean to be effective? Like, what does it look like? We need to rethink and reimagine so many ways of what we've always done. And I think the younger generation coming up are not going to put up with the way things have always been done either. So if we're going to be sustainable, we need to be willing to change. The way the church is viewed in the community is very different now to what it was. So I think we need to wake up to that. And also, I think what we're trying to solve is bigger than what any one of us can do, whether as a leader or as an organization. It's just, there's bigger issues at play that need a bigger way of thinking to get things done. So I think that's the context that we're in. And I think there was always that at play, but it just seems to have ramped up, right? Even more so. And so we've got this kind of constant change and complexity and almost chaos. And so we need people capable as leaders of holding the unknown, the complexity, but being able to still find a way forward. So being okay with not knowing. And I think that's really hard for us. We want to know and we don't know. And so that can be paralyzing and it can stop us from actually moving forward. So that's I guess the skill that we need more and more of. And I wonder, you know, if part of that is like those prophetic voices that we need to invite into our thinking and our way of responding, rather than shutting out some of that and perhaps bunkering down, which I just think is not going to help anyone.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned, I mean, Trey, because you also mentioned kind of less ego. What does that have to do with eco leadership?
Look, this is my own thread. I would say Simon Weston has not gone into this, but I think this is a big piece of the puzzle, because I as I look at what eco leadership requires, what I see is like you actually have to let go of yourself and have contained your own ego to be able to do eco effectively. I don't see how you can actually productively collaborate, network with others, form new entities that might tackle global poverty or in climate change or whatever it might be, if you can't let go of your own sense of, you know, what's important to you in a good way. You know, it's not completely self-flagellating, like, you know, I am nothing, you are everything. But I think the ability to look beyond yourself is really important. So when I say less ego, I think it's just simply, you know, what the great stuff that CCI talk about is around knowing yourself, being able to contain your shadow side. And this kind of all, you know, has really kind of formulated for me, in particular, listening to The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, right? Where you just see the ego sprayed out. And I think early days it was more contained and some of that eco leadership happened. And then over time, the ego wasn't contained. And so we saw, you know, in Driscoll's case, you know, just a shocking playing out of that. And that's extreme. I'm not saying we're all going to end up like that, but I think if what is called for in today's current environment is more eco capability, I think we have to be doing the personal responsibility, that work on ourselves to be able to then play in that space.
Yeah. So what are some tips that you can give? How do we contain some of our ego?
Look, I'm going to go there. Enneagram, it's my little soapbox, and I will get on that soapbox now. Listen to the podcast if you're a 3. I do Myers-Briggs, DISC, all of those things are great. And StrengthsFinder, all of them are excellent. For me, around ego stuff, I think Enneagram just gets to the heart, because you can very quickly see what your shadow side is written out in a very confronting way. Mm-hmm. So do some work around knowing your type, being able to see where that real unhealthy place could go. And then I think get a great coach or a spiritual director, and actually have the space set aside to be looking at that and doing the work. And I think just identifying 1 or 2 things to disrupt the pattern that's happening for you. So for me, I know as a achiever, Enneagram 3, I'm always going to be doing. I like the external world. It makes me happy. I get good feedback. I get to wear sparkly things. I get to, have a sense of doing and getting things achieved. Yeah. But for my growth and to contain my ego, I actually need to do the inner work. So I need to be silent. I need to, I've actually tattooed it on my, I don't know if I showed you this, Kylie, be still and know. I've actually tattooed it on my arm recently, because I'm like, this is my lifelong journey. If I could get this message embedded in my mind and heart and soul, then I think I'll be a better leader for it. I'll be a better human for it, and a better follower of Jesus. So I think just finding what are those couple of things that need to, that you could just start to embed that will disrupt your current patterns, to change the trajectory of where you could go if that ego is unchecked.
Yeah. Oh, so much gold in there, Michelle. I think we're going to have you back, because I think there's more stuff that we need to do on this one. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insight, and just with us today. So thank you so much. It's been great to meet with you. And for those of you who are watching, watch out. We'll get Michelle back for another day to be able to share some more of her wisdom. But look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Have a great day.
Thanks.